there is a very pernicious lie that has been spreading around the music business that needs to be addressed, and it's the idea that independent artists can't compete with the big artists that are backed by labels. I know this is shocking. A lot of artists think kind of pessimistically that just because they don't have the funding and the team behind them, that there's absolutely no way they could compete, and therefore they should probably just give it up. And I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't give it up. There's actually a way that independent artists have advantages over big labels. I want to give you a quick story as an analogy, because this helped kind of blow my mind in another area. Whenever I was studying for 10 years about entrepreneurship, I came across this guy named Peter Lynch, and he invested in stocks and all kinds of stuff. He was really, really good at it. And one of the things that he mentioned was that, Wall Street thinks they have an edge on everything because they have all the fancy computing. He's like, but you, for instance, let's say you sell cars and you're on the ground level every day selling cars. You know which cars are selling more than other cars because you're the one selling them, right? So you have eyes on the ground in a way that Wall Street really doesn't. And so I would argue that in the music business, you have a similar advantage. You have a similar advantage where it's this idea that you have eyes on the ground in your local or regional area, okay? You know what new venues are popping up. You know the new promoters that are taking over booking those gigs. You know the different bands that get regularly booked and who are the favorites. And by the way, let's not pretend like local music promoters don't play favorites. They all play favorites, and it's okay. I'm not judging anybody because it's just sort of the nature of the game. But it makes me laugh when I see promoters say, we never play favorites. And then I look at their bills and there's a band that doesn't really do anything that somehow plays multiple nights on festivals that they book and all this kind of stuff. It's like, don't pretend like you don't play favorites. Anyway, that's an aside. I don't want to get down the rabbit hole. We can make a whole video about local music scenes. But the idea is you have an advantage over the big artists because you have eyes on the ground in the local area that you're in. And so you can start to build this domination locally first, where you want to be the band or the artist that anytime your favorite artist or band comes into town, everyone is like, you need to book this artist. You need to book this band. Everyone is telling them, and then guess what happens? If you don't get booked, people are still going to tell them at the merch table, oh man, you guys should have booked this band. They're from here and they're really good. The openers you had tonight were kind of, dude, the audience members are real. They'll tell you if like what you're putting out is not up to quality. So it's really important that you develop this local scene domination. And I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you may already went to the comments. But Dax, my local scene sucks. No one in my local scene supports artists. Here's what I would say. There's either two possibilities. One, you live in like a really, really small town, and that is likely true. So if that is the situation you're in a small town and you feel like nobody in that town really gets it, they don't support art and the pursuit of art, they're very, stuck and rigid in their ways, then here's what you can do. Expand outward. What is the nearest city that has some modicum of a local scene going, right? So let's say you live in some random city in Texas where it's kind of West Texas, where I don't know if anybody's ever been to West Texas before. It's like the desert, basically, just desert and lots of nothing. Anyway, but the idea here is like, let's say you live in like Fort Stockton. Let's say you live in Fort Stockton. Oh, Dax, I don't know how I'm ever going to break out of this local scene because there's nothing going on here and nobody supports it. Well, there is actually a pretty cool little rock coffee shop that exists in Fort Stockton. But outside of that, it's like, what do I do? Okay, maybe you can go to El Paso. Maybe you can go to other like areas that are near you. I think if I'm not mistaken, that's really close to the border of New Mexico. So maybe there's some places in New Mexico, Roswell, Santa Fe, Albuquerque that you could potentially look at. Maybe you go east and try to figure out Amarillo, maybe, or that would be, I guess, north from there. But, go east, find Dallas, Fort Worth. Where are the nearest regions that you can start playing shows, start promoting? And by the way, you don't just have to go play shows. You can just create advertisements and content online and target specifically your local area within like a 25-mile radius or the biggest, nearest areas that are kind of bustling, right? So when I'm saying this, I'm not just referring to going out and playing gigs, because I know a lot of artists out there don't really have a gig set up yet. Don't feel limited by this strategy. You can still use it at home. You're just targeting your content and your advertising a specific place. And because make no mistake, it costs money to go play a gig. So if it costs money to go run an ad to get the same effect, it's effectively the same thing, right? Okay. Now, the next thing I want to point out, this next strategy that actually gives artists an advantage that they typically don't recognize, is you have flexibility that other artists who have the bureaucracy of labels and management and booking agents, they have to deal with all the time that you don't have to deal with this. So here's something I want you to take into consideration. You remember when Snoop Dogg went on, I can't remember what podcast it was, but he said, man, I got 1 billion streams. You know how much 1 billion streams are worth? And they're like, what? How much is 1 billion streams worth, Snoop Dogg? And he's like, $40,000 after I talked to my accountant. And I immediately was like, oh, Snoop, that's painful to hear. Not because I'm going to look now and go, artists only get paid 40 grand from 1 billion streams. No. I'm like, Snoop, you are getting screwed over so hard in your business, it's painful. So let's do the math on this. The payout streaming royalty rate for every artist on average, right? We'll get into this. On average is 0.0035 cents, okay? As of the last stat. So if that's the case, 1 billion streams, if you do the math on the payout, that's $3.5 million. Okay, now let's go back to Snoop Dogg. Where'd the rest of your money go, dude? Maybe it was that accountant you were talking to, or the label that you got signed up with, or maybe your manager was taking a percentage too. I want you to think about that. That means from that that billion streams that Snoop got, it's not that he didn't earn $3.5 million. He absolutely earned $3.5 million or more, because one of the things we talked about in one of my other videos is how labels will negotiate with Spotify to give better royalty payouts to their artists, kind of like preferred clients in a sense. It's kind of messed up, right? So even if that was going on for Snoop, let's just assume it wasn't though, and he just made 0.0035 cents every stream like we would. He had $3.5 million, so that means there's $3.4,960,000 that are unaccounted for Snoop's earnings. That is the problem of the big industry machine. Yes, you the people who are upset in the comments and everything that are like, no, the big industry is just gonna, dominate everything. It's like, listen, they may generate the most money, but if you think the artists are out there killing it and crushing it, I would beg to differ. I would argue that if you looked at Nick D and Snoop Dogg's billion streams, let's say they both got 1 billion streams and you put them side by side, Nick D is making probably close to 3.5 mil. He's probably making close to that. Where Snoop is only making 40? Guys, I need you to understand that means you have the potential, because artists have labels and all this bureaucracy. That means you have the ability to make 100 times more per stream than a big time artist. I mean, think about that. Like, I did the math, I've written it out, where if you took $40,000 and you figure out, well, if I get paid 0.0035 cents and that should get me 3.5 million, what does that mean Snoop Dogg's streams are worth to him? Because they're not worth 0.0035, because he's only getting 40 grand of the 3.5 million. Are you ready for this? That means Snoop Dogg's royalty stream payout is 0.000035 cents. You make 100 times more per stream than most big artists, because you don't have to pay out the percentage of your ownership to labels, and you don't have to pay these big time accountants that have retainers that they pay all this money to. Like, you don't have all those big bureaucratic systems over your head. And that allows you also to move flexibly through your business. So let's say you've been doing one thing for a certain period of time, and then like the song just isn't really catching steam like you wanted, but you got this new song that you really think is a lot better that will. Sometimes labels be like, no, you have to finish the promotion cycle. We already put money behind this particular single. We can't just pivot on a dime to a new single. Well, guess what? When you're an independent artist, you can do whatever the hell you want. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to sit there and go, well, is the label going to approve this new single, and are they going to do the thing and blah, blah, blah? No, you don't have to go through all that. You can just make that decision. If you want to build a fan club, you don't have to go like, okay, guys, we're going to go build a fan club. We need you to go do the blah. Now everyone's got their fingers and claws in it and taking their percentages, where an independent artist can just go set up their Patreon or go set up their fan club through their own website tomorrow. And that's one of the beautiful things that we have available to us, is that like we have all these tools that are helping us make fast changes in our music business and start progressing. I can't tell you, you remember back in the day when you were a little kid and you ordered an action figure or a doll online if you're a girl, right? And it took like 8 weeks for that to get in. It was like waiting, it might as well have been 8 months for a kid, to wait to that thing to get in, right? But technology improves over time, that Amazon has 2-day shipping now. And so to think of waiting 8 weeks for something like a toy or a doll is ridiculous, right? In that same fashion, if you wanted to create album artwork, back in the day, it was a long, arduous process. Now there's AI tools, there's freelancers that you can hire very easily, there's stuff you can do yourself on Canva very easily. There's all kinds of wonderful things that are available to you to speed up the process. And as an independent artist, you have this ability to kind of move more freely. Now granted, the big time record label artists, you would think, well, they don't have to work a job, I have to work a job. Here's a dirty little secret. A lot of label signed artists still have to work jobs. I know, right? It's kind of a little thing that no one likes to talk about. But yeah, like especially like in rock and metal, I know, gosh, at this point, I know hundreds of artists who are doing really, really well. They've sold hundreds of thousands of records, if not millions of records, that still need a side hustle, still need a day job in certain cases. Like one of them that I knew was a website designer. So it was a remote job. He could just design people's websites on the go for them, but it was a side hustle that he needed to do. So there's sort of this fallacy that once I get signed and once I get hooked up with a record label, I won't have to work a job anymore. It's like, you're not making as much per stream as the independent artist does. So if their marketing doesn't work out because they don't know what they're doing, you're screwed. And that brings me to my third and final point, why you have an advantage as an independent artist, which is you have the ability to utilize strategies that are new and working. I mean, now, sometimes it's not even like a new strategy. It's just people finally figuring out how to utilize the fundamentals properly. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but here's the point I'm trying to make. The industry is outdated and antiquated. It does things in a way that just doesn't work. Email lists are a great example. If you go sign up for like a big artist's email list and they blew up anywhere from the mid to late 90s to the 2000s to maybe 2010, if you go to those artists' email lists, most of them are pretty archaic. It's like you get email updates anytime there's shows and a tour, maybe there's a new merch line, and that's it. It's like that's all they talk to you about, and it's not very frequent. There's no real storytelling going on. There's no personalization to it. It's basically like another social media platform to a lot of big artists. And it doesn't work that way if you know how to really optimize an email list. Because I've seen people like, well, big artists are only getting 10% open rates. I'm like, well, that's a damn shame, because even my lowest performing clients are getting 16 to 20% open rates. And my best performing clients are getting up to like 45% open rates. So there's clearly something that they're missing. And people just can't believe that, well, they've got all the resources. Are you telling me these people aren't figuring it out and they're not on it? You have to understand that in a bureaucracy, making big changes like that is a horrible, painstaking process. There's so much red tape to make big changes. So the idea that a management company or a label is going to change up their email approach that they've been using for 20 years is very slim. But if you want to adapt a new strategy, like we talked about, you can just go do it, right? And so making those changes is very easy. And what I've found is that the artists that are utilizing direct marketing and those principles, but just modernizing it for the new way that people are consuming the information, are the ones that are getting the best results. In email lists, in social media, there's a lot of big artists where you look at their social media and it's kind of outdated. It's not really putting out content that clearly consumers are wanting to, enjoy. Fan clubs, that's a huge one where I think fan clubs are so underdeveloped, it's a crime in the music business, where fan clubs, I think Avenged Sevenfold has done a really good job. They make it very interactive and there's really cool perks and benefits that mean something. A lot of artists, big artists fan club is like, yeah, it's a yearly membership and here's a merch package you get for your membership, and that's it basically. Oh, and you'll get 5% off the merch store every time you purchase. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the 5% off. I don't know. It's just so old, outdated, and antiquated that it boggles my mind that people with millions of dollars of funding have not figured this out. But that's the thing. They're slow to move because they're such big machines. We're little machines. We can make the little pivots anytime we need. And it's a lot easier to pull these things off because we can figure out the strategies that actually work, implement them quickly, and start getting results. Now, yes, if we're looking at scale, and that's the only metric we're judging, then sure, it's hard to compete with an industry at scale because they can throw millions of dollars into a failing advertising campaign. Where if we throw $1 million into an ad campaign, it better be a damn good winner campaign. That better be the best dang ad campaign you've ever had, right? But in that sense, we don't need that. If we can figure out how to utilize that information of, okay, well, I'll spend $1,000 or $100 in ads even on the small side, and I'll be able to leverage new skills to be able to make my money back on that and then keep getting returns on that for where you are going to have to continually invest money in advertising that you're going to be in debt to the label for and never get that money back because the ads they run suck and aren't proven to work and they have to spend thousands of dollars just to test to figure it out. You get the whole point though. You can succeed, not like we're not looking at scale, but we're looking like if you equalized and made everyone equal. Let's say that we brought them down to our level and we made all the numbers 1-to-1, you would be outperforming them. You would be outperforming them. You would have better open rates in your emails, better engagement on your social media, more people inside of your fan club, proportionately speaking. That's the idea, is people think too much in terms of scale. They think, well, I'm not Taylor Swift. I don't have millions of dollars to invest in my merchandise and my brand. So since I can't do it as big as Swiftie can do it, I can't do it. It's like, no, you can do it at proportion to where you're at. So, maybe you can't afford, 18 different items and 4 merch people running it, right? Who cares? You can do it at a low level where you're running it and you've got 1 or 2 killer items. Don't have any filler items. That's a big tip. I've seen some people like, well, what can I create? I need to do a whole training on just creating merchandise. But my biggest tip is figure out what your audience is already consuming on a daily basis or a weekly basis and create that. Don't think inside the box too much of like, oh, I could create a black t-shirt. It's like, sure, you want to have black t-shirts, of course, but let's mix it up after that, right? Maybe thermoses, maybe koozies, maybe bottle openers, maybe belt buckles, maybe, you get the idea. Maybe socks, whatever it is that someone's going to be continually using and want to have a branded thing of you to do it with. Think about that. That'll hopefully help you out. But the idea here, hopefully, is you understand that because you're an independent artist and you have to, by the nature of being independent, you have to focus on the business, that instantly puts you at an advantage to where the artists who basically are getting the silver spoon of the music industry become spoiled and entitled and don't commit to learning the new strategies because they've got it kind of cushy on the way down, so they don't really care. But you're on the way up and you have hunger, so you're actually looking at the business foundations, and that's going to give you an advantage. I guarantee that. Back in the day, even back in like the 50s and 70s and stuff, when advertising was, there was big advertising firms and stuff, there still are, but the Madison Avenue and all that kind of stuff, there were guys like David Ogilvy that were like, all these big bloated agencies like in the Madison Avenue area, they don't have a single, like they can't hold a flame to these direct response marketing guys. The guys who figured out how to reach out directly to their customers and people they were trying to aim for and do that marketing that way, those were the people that actually made millions of dollars in a hush-hush, quiet, behind-the-scenes kind of manner, where you had the big fancy advertising agencies that were spending millions of dollars while making millions of dollars. So, but then you had the direct response guys that figured out how to be lean and mean and profitable. And I liken you, the music entrepreneurs, the guys that are serious about your art, and the gals that are serious about your art, and you are like, okay, I'm going to turn this into my livelihood. So now I'm going to focus on the business. You are becoming the direct response marketer people, as opposed to the people that are aiming for the labels and the managers to take care of everything. And those people who are going to like do all the business work for me. That's not what we're aiming for, because we understand where that leads. That leads to basically being a slave to the music business. and you don't, or a slave to the music industry, I should say more specifically. And that's just had some really bad outcomes. I think we've seen enough history to know that that's a bad outcome waiting to happen, where this other path, while it requires more work, the end result is you get more benefits than you ever thought you could have gotten. So I hope this video has been valuable for you. If you like some one-on-one help with your music business, there's a link in the description to apply for a coaching call. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you can check it out. If not, no worries. Just hit the subscribe button and the like button. If it really gave you some value, it helps out the channel a lot. Make sure to hit the notification bell. And I can't wait to see you guys on another video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.